Hello, everybody. My name is Kate, and I will be your host for today. Welcome to another guest lecture at Hospitality Academy. Today, we have a great topic lined up from moment to movement, resilience, connection, and event strategies. Our guest speaker is Raef Toler, an expert in events with lots of experience. So, if you want to succeed in this field, today's session will provide you with helpful tips on how to build unforgettable events. Also, I would like to apologize that at the moment we're having some technical issues. So unfortunately, Raif cannot share his camera, but I hope that this will be all right with all of you. And I will just leave the floor to Raif so that he tells us a little bit more about himself.
Awesome, great introduction. Good morning, everyone. My name is Raef Toler, and I serve as the Marketing and Events Coordinator for Old Town Kissimmee. Thank you all for joining me today to discuss a critical shift in how we approach event strategy and community building. Leading in today's presentation, in my role, I oversee comprehensive event programming and strategic marketing initiatives for our entertainment district, working to create meaningful connections between our venue and the diverse communities we serve. I'm honored to have this opportunity to share insights on evolving our approach to foster deeper engagement and sustainable growth within our local and visitor markets. I want to first start off with a fundamental question. What's the difference between an event that people attend and forget and one that creates lasting change? The answer lies in understanding the distinction between creating moments and building movements. Today, we'll explore a framework built on three core principles: resilience, authentic connections, and strategic architecture. These aren't just theoretical concepts, they're practical approaches that can transform how your organization engages with its community and measures success. By the end of our session, you'll have a clear understanding of how to shift from event focused thinking to movement focused strategy, along with practical tools for implementation. Let's address the reality many of us face. Organizations invest significant resources in conferences, summits, and gatherings, yet often struggle to demonstrate lasting impact beyond the event itself. The traditional approach focuses on metrics like attendance numbers, satisfaction scores, and immediate feedback. While these are important, they don't really capture the full picture of what we're trying to achieve. They measure activity rather than transformation, presence rather than engagement. The organizations that are succeeding in today's environment understand something different. They recognize that sustainable impact comes not from sporadic high impact events, but from consistent community cultivation that builds over time. This is the difference between moment focused and movement focused strategies. Moment focused approaches see events as discrete experiences with clear beginnings and endings. Success is measured by what happens during the event. Movement focused approaches see events as catalysts within a larger strategy. Success is measured by what happens after the event ends, the actions people take, the connections they maintain, and most importantly, the changes they implement. The framework I'm presenting today rests on three foundational elements that work together to create lasting impact, beginning with resilience. This goes beyond basic contingency planning. Resilience means building systems that can adapt and even thrive during unexpected changes. It's about creating stability that participants can rely on while remaining flexible enough to evolve with circumstances. The second is connections. Not networking in the traditional sense, but authentic relationship building that creates genuine communities. This means prioritizing depth over breadth and fostering connections that continue long after people leave your event. Finally, strategic architecture. This is the intentional design of every element to support your broader objectives. Rather than planning events in isolation, everything becomes part of a cohesive strategy that builds towards specific goals. These three pillars work together. Resilience creates the foundation for trust, connections provide the network for amplification, and strategic architecture ensures everything serves a purpose. Now, beginning with beyond the event horizon, most event planning ends when the last person leaves the venue. But this is where the movement building begins. I call this moving beyond the event horizon. The key shift is from thinking about events as destinations to thinking about them as launching pads. Every element should be designed to create momentum that continues building after the formal program ends. This requires what I call a movement mindset, understanding that your event is not the goal, it's the catalyst. Success isn't measured only by what happens in the room, but by what happens in the world because of what started in that room. And following those practices leads us over to the purpose driven design. This means every element must serve the larger mission. Every speaker selection, every session format, every networking opportunity should advance your strategic objectives. This level of intentionality transforms events from collections of activities into coherent experiences that drive specific outcomes. The most effective movements in history didn't start with massive gatherings. They started with small, intentional meetings that sparked something bigger. Your events can follow the same pattern. Moving on to building resilient foundations. True resilience operates on multiple levels and requires systematic thinking about how your organization responds to challenges and opportunities. Anticipate and prepare. This means mapping potential challenges before they emerge. I'm not just talking about backup plans for technical issues. I'm talking about comprehensive scenario planning that considers various disruptions and how to turn them into opportunities. Effective preparation includes environmental scanning to stay aware of industry trends, stakeholder mapping to understand your community dynamics, and resource flexibility to adapt quickly when circumstances change. A perfect example was during the pandemic. A lot of event planners, a lot of organizations had to be strategic, not only in their organizational goals and mission, but also changing to go with that certain trend. Talking about flexible by design, build systems that can bend without breaking. This means creating modular approaches that can shift between different formats, in person, virtual, or hybrid, without losing their essential value. It also means developing content that works across multiple platforms and engagement strategies that adapt to different environments while maintaining their core purpose. Recovery planning. Establish clear protocols for responding to disruptions. This isn't just crisis management, it's crisis transformation. The question becomes, how do you turn unexpected challenges into opportunities for deeper engagement? Organizations that master this approach often find that their most memorable and impactful moments come from how they handle unexpected situations, not from their perfectly executed plans. Continuous evolution. Learn from each experience to strengthen future initiatives. Every event should inform the next one. What worked well? What could be improved? How can you enhance not just the logistics, but the actual impact? This creates a feedback loop that makes each iteration more effective than the last. And finally, trust building, creating stability that participants can rely on, and also believe too. Most networking fails because it focuses on transaction rather than relationship. Real connection requires intentional design and genuine care for participant experience. This is what I mean by authentic engagement. Priority should be on depth rather than superficial networking. This means creating opportunities for longer, more meaningful conversations rather than speed networking sessions. It means designing activities that reveal genuine interests and values, not just professional titles. When we talk about strategic interaction design, we want to create both physical and psychological spaces that facilitate genuine connection. This includes the environmental design, how spaces are arranged to encourage conversation, but more importantly, the emotional environment that makes people feel safe to be authentic. Consider how to create opportunities for people to share what they're genuinely working on, what they believe in, what challenges they're facing, and what support they need. These conversations create stronger bonds than traditional business card exchanges, which bleeds into network effect because, of course, you need to build interconnected communities where every connection potentially links to every other connection. You're not just introducing people, you're weaving networks of relationships that strengthen with each new connection. This requires understanding the existing relationships within your community and strategically facilitating new connections that benefit multiple parties. And of course, going back to digital and physical integration, when we use technology to enhance rather than replace human connection, digital tools can allow people to prepare for better in person conversations, maintain connections between events, and collaborate on shared interests. The goal isn't moving everything online, it's to use digital capabilities to make face to face interactions more meaningful and to keep relationships active between gatherings, which goes into belonging metrics. We want to measure sense of community, not just attendance numbers like I mentioned earlier. Track how many people feel like they belong, how many make connections that continued beyond the event, and how many became advocates for your mission. These metrics tell you whether you're building a community or just hosting a gathering. Going on to strategic event architecture, a blueprint what I consider for impact. Strategic architecture is about intentional design where every element serves the broader mission and contributes to measurable outcomes. As we look at goal alignment, every component should support your broader objectives. This requires discipline in evaluating each element. Does this session advance our mission? Does this speaker embody our values? Does this activity create the outcomes we need? This doesn't necessarily mean everything has to be serious or formal. It means everything should be purposeful. And as we talk about stakeholder integration, map and engage key players at every stage. This goes beyond getting important people to attend. It's actually about understanding the ecosystem of influence around your cause and strategically engaging each stakeholder in ways that multiply your impact. Really consider who needs to be in the room, who needs to hear about what happened, and most importantly, who needs to be equipped to take action afterward. As we lean into resource optimization, allocate the time, talent, and budget for maximum effort. Understand where your biggest impact opportunities lie and invest accordingly. Often, this means spending more time on fewer things rather than trying to do everything. A good tip that I have and some insight I would love to share is what I consider the 80-20 principle, which 20% of your efforts will drive 80% of your results. Focus your resources there. Innovation balance. Blend fresh approaches with proven methodologies. Innovation should serve your mission, not just provide novelty. The goal is to enhance impact, not just create something different. Test new approaches on a small scale before implementing them broadly, and always have fallback options that you know work in the case it doesn't. And that leads us finally to the last point I have is for strategic event architecture is a seamless experiences. You want to create consistent journeys across all touch points. From the moment someone first hears about your initiative to months after they participated, every interaction should feel cohesive and purposeful. This includes pre event communication, the event experience itself, and all follow up activities. Each touch point should reinforce your core messages and advance your strategic objectives. The transformation from passive participation to active advocacy is perhaps the most important outcome of movement building. This happens through systematic attention to how people experience and engage with your community. People need to feel seen and valued for their contributions. This creates positive feedback loops that encourage deeper engagement. Recognition doesn't always have to be formal. Sometimes the most powerful recognition is simply acknowledging someone's expertise or thanking them for their perspective. This goes into safe spaces because we create environments where people feel comfortable being authentic. Psychological safety isn't just nice to have, it's essential for the vulnerability required for real transformation and meaningful contribution. This means establishing clear community guidelines, modeling vulnerable leadership, and actively managing group dynamics to ensure everyone feels welcome to participate. And you want to provide clear opportunities for meaningful participation. People want to contribute, but they need to understand how. Create multiple entry points for engagement that match different skill levels, time commitments, and comfort zones. This might include opportunities to share expertise, mentor others, collaborate on projects, or take on leadership roles within the community. Gradually shift initiative to community members. The most successful movements are those where the community takes ownership of the mission. Your role shifts from being the center of attention to being the facilitator of community action. This requires intentionally creating leadership opportunities for community members and supporting them as they take on greater responsibility. Traditional event metrics only tell part of the story. For movement building, you need indicators that capture the full scope of your impact. We want to look at first the immediate impact. These are your baseline metrics: attendance, engagement during sessions, feedback scores, and immediate media coverage. Important but not sufficient. The next factor is going to be sustained participation. Track return rates, community growth between events, and ongoing involvement. These metrics indicate whether you're building lasting relationships or just creating one time experiences. And most importantly, measure actions taken as a direct result of participation. This looks in further into the behavioral change, as this is where you will see the real world impact. Are people implementing new strategies, making different decisions, or are they really taking on new challenges? Which also goes into the ripple effects. Track secondary impacts beyond your primary participants. How is your movement spreading to new communities? Are participants bringing colleagues? Are ideas being implemented in other organizations? You want to measure how effectively your story spreads without direct promotion. When people become unpaid advocates who share your message because they believe in it, you know you've created something powerful. These balance indicators give you a complete picture of your movement's health and growth potential. Moving from theory to practice requires a systematic approach. Here's how to begin. Assessment first. Honestly, evaluate your current strengths across resilience, connections, and strategic architecture. Where are you already strong? Where do you need to improve? What resources do you have available? Prioritize implementation. Start with changes that will have the highest impact with the lowest resource requirements. You don't need to transform everything immediately. Just start by picking a few key areas and executing them well. Community fortification, strengthening existing relationships before trying to expand. You want to build deeper connections with your current community before focusing on growth. Those deep relationships are more valuable than any other broad networks. Momentum maintenance, create regular touch points between major events. Communities need ongoing nurturing. This might include online discussions, smaller regional gatherings, collaborative projects, or regular communications that add value. Finally, continuous evolution. Adapt your approach based on what you learn. Stay flexible and keep improving. What works in one context might need adjustment in another. Be willing to experiment and iterate. The key is to start somewhere and build systematically rather than trying to implement everything all at once. As you consider how to apply these concepts, think about your specific context and current challenges. Start by identifying one area where you can make an immediate improvement. Maybe it's creating better opportunities for connection at your next event. Maybe it's developing a follow up strategy that maintains engagement. Maybe it's redesigning your agenda to better align with strategic goals. Whatever you choose, make it specific and measurable. Set clear success criteria so you can evaluate what works and what needs adjustment. Consider forming a small team to champion this transformation. Change is easier when you have support and shared accountability. But most importantly, remember that building movements take time. Be patient with the process while maintaining urgency about taking action. The shift from moments to movements represents a fundamental change in how we think about events and community building. It's not just about doing events differently, it's about seeing events as a part of a larger strategy for creating lasting change. The organizations that master this approach will build stronger communities, create more sustainable impact, and develop genuine competitive advantages in their fields. The framework is clear: build resilience, foster authentic connections, and design everything strategically. The tools are available. The question is whether you'll commit to making this shift. Your next event could be just another moment, or it could be the beginning of a movement. The choice is yours. Thank you all for your attention. I'm happy to discuss any questions you have about implementing any of these approaches in your next event.
Thank you so much, Raef. This was a very interesting presentation, and I'm pretty sure that we have a lot of questions lined up. We already have three.
Oh, awesome,
So,
awesome.
I'm just gonna read them from the chat, and you can start answering them one by one. So Muriel is asking, what's the difference between designing for connection and designing for engagement?
That is a phenomenal question. I mean, when we talk about designing for engagement, it's really to connect with individuals, like align them with their organizations and see what values, what goals are they trying to hit, as they'll feel more obligated to engage with you than rather the first question. You want to allow the room to have more engagement.
Okay, I see. Perfect. Here, we have another question from Manuel, who is asking, how do you convince stakeholders to invest in community building and not just attendance?
Sorry, you broke out. What was the question again?
I'm sorry. Manuel is asking, how do you convince stakeholders to invest in community building and not for them just to attend the event?
That is a phenomenal question. I really feel it's like asking those necessary questions, because you want to ensure that those stakeholders, when they're investing for the community building rather than the attendance, you want to ensure that the community building aspects create sustained attendance rather than one time spikes. Show stakeholders that invested community members attend multiple events throughout the year, increasing their lifetime customer value and reducing per event marketing costs. I mean, I'm not going to lie, attendance numbers are great, but if there's no information to back it up, it makes it harder for the stakeholders to go ahead and invest in the company.
Yeah, I see. Well, I hope that your questions was answered, Manuel. Now we have another question from Sandra, and she's asking, how do you actually measure if an event created a lasting impact?
I that is another great question. To measure if an event had an everlasting impact on somebody, it's obviously creating that loop. When the event is ongoing, I pay attention to the feedback I receive, seeing people's reactions, and then after the event ends, seeing the reviews, the reception that the overall event got. And that's how I kind of measure how long of an event had an impact. If people are raving and saying that was the best one, we want to come back and have another event. That's how I know the event was truly a success. But if the reception was negative during the event, even leading up before, there wasn't much engagement, and then afterwards it wasn't really what it lived up to be, that's how I would track the engagement.
I see. Thank you so much. We have another question from Camilla, and she's asking, what's one thing people often overlook when planning purpose-driven events?
Another phenomenal question. I think a lot of people overlook the fact when they're coming to planning the events is the real value that they're giving back to the community. I mean, it starts first with the experiences these people are going to go ahead and receive when attending this event. It's not something, tracking the attendance numbers. It's not bringing in the most best vendors or the best talent to come showcase your event. It's really about creating value and something that's going to go back into the community that leads into that overall impact for them. That is the best way I could answer that question.
Thank you so much. We have two more questions. The first one from Anna, she's asking, is it better to grow your community slowly and deeply or aim for scale from the start?
I honestly, once again, a phenomenal question. I would say you want to start gradually slow and build organically. It's always great to have long-term goals of scaling, but you want to go ahead and build that organic growth slowly within the community. When we look at marketing things such as word of mouth, digital social media channels, if you build that following gradually, you're able to eventually get that building consistently and continuing to adapt and bleed into all your other events. Where if you were to scale from the start, you're not really building that organic growth and you're not maintaining that consistency amongst different events. So you really want to start slowly, connect with people, listen to their feedback, and go from there, and then start implementing different strategies that can take your next event to scale to start with that same organic community involved.
Thank you so much. Another question we have from Maria Carolina. She's asking, how do you recover if an event doesn't go as planned?
When it comes to recovery, if an event fails or something doesn't go necessarily as we planned it to, I think it's always going back to the blueprint, understanding what went wrong, how to address it, and how to fix it next time. But you want to always use those failures, the expectation if it didn't meet to as motivation to go back to the drawing board and figure out what caused the event to go wrong and change something different for the next event. So you're not repeating that same effect from if one event fails, you don't want your next one to fail. You want to make sure that you learn from those mistakes and then you build upon them to create something better for the next time.
I see. From what I see, we have just one last question from Caroline. She's asking, what recommendations would you give to someone who is starting in the hospitality industry and feels attracted to the F&B field?
For someone who's starting out in the hospitality industry, you want to go ahead and get with an organization that you truly believe in, some organization that can give you the opportunity to come in at entry level and allow you to learn and grow consistently in your role. If you're interested mainly in the food and beverage industry side of things and hospitality, you want to go for a long-standing organization, in my opinion, that has all the tools and resources to give you for you to learn and network your way up into that organization. But get involved with an organization that you believe in, learn from anybody that you can, maybe get one or two mentors that have already put years or their expertise in the field, and slowly adapt and take all that information, all those insights you learn, and apply it to that role as you start out in your journey. And I think what's in your benefit as starting out is you really have nothing to lose. If you go to one organization, you can learn a lot just by being a part of that organization and a particular team.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I hope your question was answered. I see another question from Didi. This is more towards Hospitality Academy. So, if you would like, Didi, I'm gonna send you a link so that you can book a call with one of our advisors so that he can answer your question and give you more details on this matter. And so from what I see, there is no more questions for now. So I think that is it. And Raef, thank you so, so much for giving us this presentation and answering all of those questions. It was really an honor to have you here with us. And yeah, also for everybody, we recorded this guest lecture, so it's going to be also shared on our YouTube, and we also are going to send you the link to the video. So if you joined late or if you missed some content, don't worry, you're going to be able to watch it back. And thank you all so much again, and I hope to see you in our next guest lecture.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. And thank you once again to Hospitality Academy for giving me this platform to do this presentation. And thank you all once again for joining me today to give you all my wonderful insights. I hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your morning.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. All right.